Every country on Earth is in debt. It is a staggering, almost incomprehensible figure that now exceeds $315 trillion globally. But for us, here in Europe, the number that matters most is the one that binds us together. The 14 trillion euros in debt carried by the European Union and its member states. From the sun-drenched shores of the Mediterranean to the industrial heartlands of the North, every nation, every government, every citizen is connected by this invisible colossal web of obligation. Germany, the economic powerhouse, carries its own burden. Italy, with its historic debts, faces constant scrutiny. Even the most fiscally conservative nations participate in this planetary game of IOUs. But here is the paradox that should keep every European awake at night. If every country in the Eurozone is a debtor, who exactly is the ultimate creditor? The answer is not a single nation, nor a single bank, but a complex, self-referential system that is both the engine of our prosperity and the source of our deepest political divisions. This is the story of how debt became the architecture of the modern European project, and how the interest payments on that debt are silently redistributing the wealth of a continent. To understand the modern European debt machine, we must first look back to its origins. The concept of national debt was not born in a modern financial district, but in the crucible of European warfare. The year 1694, with England fighting France, saw the birth of the Bank of England. The Crown, desperate for funds, offered merchants a revolutionary deal: finance the war in exchange for a permanent stream of interest payments, backed by the future taxes of the nation. This was the birth of the government bond, a simple promise that could be traded, bought, and sold. It was a European invention, quickly refined by the Dutch and copied by the French. Debt was no longer a mark of failure. It became a measure of a nation's credibility, its ability to promise and to tax. The ability to borrow became the ability to rule. But the modern European debt story has a second, more recent genesis: the creation of the Eurozone. When the euro was launched, it was a political masterpiece, uniting diverse economies under a single currency. But it was a financial experiment unlike any other. For the first time, sovereign nations gave up their ability to print their own money and devalue their own currency, yet they retained the right to issue their own debt. This created a fundamental structural tension: a single monetary policy for 19 different fiscal policies. So let's follow the money trail for that 14 trillion euros. If you look at the debt of a country like Italy, who holds it? The answer is a circular mirror, much like the US system, but with a crucial European twist. 1. Domestic investors. A significant portion is held by Italian banks, pension funds, and insurance companies. This is the "we owe it to ourselves" part. Your pension fund, your life insurance policy, and your bank's balance sheet are all deeply invested in the stability of your government's debt. 2. Other Eurozone nations. French, German, and Dutch banks and funds hold vast amounts of Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese bonds. This is the interdependence that makes the Eurozone so fragile and so resilient. A crisis in Rome is a crisis in Frankfurt. 3. The ultimate arbiter, the ECB. The most powerful creditor of all is the European Central Bank, ECB, based in Frankfurt. Through programs like the Public Sector Purchase Program, PSPP, and the Pandemic Emergency Purchase Program, PEPP, the ECB has bought trillions of euros in government bonds. When the ECB buys a bond, it is effectively manufacturing new money to finance the debt of its member states. This is the key difference from the U.S. system. The U.S. Federal Reserve is buying U.S. debt. The ECB is buying the debt of multiple distinct sovereign nations. The liability of the Italian government becomes the asset of the ECB, which is itself an institution owned by the national central banks of the Eurozone. The system owes it to itself, but the debt is denominated in a currency that no single nation can control. The debt paradox is further complicated by a little-known, highly technical mechanism called Target 2. This is the payment system that settles cross-border transactions within the Eurozone. When a German company sells a machine to an Italian company, the payment is settled through the Target 2 system. If the Italian central bank's account with the ECB goes into deficit and the German central bank's account goes into surplus, these are recorded as Target 2 balances. Since the 2008 financial crisis, these balances have exploded. Germany and other Northern European nations have accumulated massive Target 2 surpluses, while Southern nations like Italy and Spain have accumulated corresponding deficits. These deficits are, in effect, uncollateralized loans from the north to the south, facilitated by the ECB. The German Bundesbank, for example, is owed hundreds of billions of euros by the Target 2 system. This is a debt that is not represented by a bond, but by a line of credit on a central bank ledger. It is the ultimate expression of the Eurozone's debt paradox, a massive, silent transfer of risk and wealth that underpins the entire currency union. The original video correctly noted that the debt system runs on confidence, not repayment. But what happens when that confidence wavers in a multi-state union like the Eurozone? We saw the answer in 2010. When Greece's debt became unpayable, the creditors suddenly became visible: the Troika, the European Commission, the ECB, and the IMF. The rescue package was not a gift. It was a restructuring that came with the brutal condition of austerity. For an entire generation in Southern Europe, bailout became synonymous with sacrifice. Tax hikes, pension cuts, and mass unemployment were the price paid to maintain the confidence of the bond markets and the stability of the euro. This was not just an economic event, it was a profound political and social trauma. The interest payments on the debt are a massive, silent redistribution of wealth. In Italy, for example, the annual interest bill is a colossal sum that is not spent on schools, hospitals, or infrastructure. It is transferred from the taxpayer to the bondholder. This economic pressure cooker has had a direct, corrosive effect on European democracy. The rise of populist and anti-establishment parties across the continent, from the Five-Star Movement in Italy to the AfD in Germany, is inextricably linked to the feeling that national governments have lost control of their own fiscal destiny, with the real power residing in the unelected financial arbiters of Frankfurt and Brussels. Governments today do not plan to repay their debt. They plan to roll it over, to issue new bonds to pay off the old ones, treating debt like a permanent rolling subscription. The real product is the interest, the rent charged for stability. The question for Europe is how this confidence game will end. The most likely scenario is not a sudden catastrophic collapse, but a soft default, a gradual erosion of the debt's real value through persistent inflation. When the ECB keeps interest rates low and continues to buy bonds, it injects new money into the system. This is the hidden tax of the debt economy. It silently transfers wealth from those who hold cash and fixed income, the pensioners, the savers, the working class, to those who hold real assets and who benefit from the debt being inflated away. For the average European saver, this is a quiet revolution. The value of their hard-earned savings in the bank is slowly being melted away to service the massive debts of the continent. The debt is not being repaid. It is being inflated away in a process that is politically expedient but socially unjust. The paradox remains. The world owes money to itself, and Europe is the most complex example of this self-referential system. Debt is the chain that binds the continent, shaping policy, redistributing wealth, and dictating the limits of our democracy. The system has replaced the gold standard with the confidence standard. And the only thing that keeps the music playing is the collective belief that the Eurozone will not break. The world owes money to itself, but the interest is paid by you. If you want to understand the world, follow the money. And if you want to understand the money, follow the debt.